Hello everyone, welcome to Sleep Space. Tonight, we'll talk about something that may challenge everything you think you know about matter, mind, and existence itself. What if awareness isn't something that only humans, or even living things, possess? What if, instead, every atom, every particle in your body and the universe has some faint spark of experience? This isn't just poetry. It's a serious question some of the world's greatest minds have quietly wrestled with for centuries. From ancient Greek philosophers to cutting-edge neuroscientists, the idea has appeared again and again, a strange whisper that refuses to go away. Could consciousness be a fundamental feature of reality itself, woven into the structure of every atom, every wave, every grain of sand? Tonight, as you settle in, let your mind loosen its grip on what feels solid, what feels certain. Let your thoughts drift through time and possibility. Because if even the smallest pieces of matter are aware in some mysterious way, then what we call you might be far more deeply connected to the universe than you've ever imagined. To explore this, we need to start by defining what we mean by awareness. Scientists still debate this endlessly. Some define it as the ability to feel something, anything at all, a faint sense of what it is like to exist. By that definition, an animal, a human, and even perhaps a simple system like a thermostat could be said to have some minimal awareness, a primitive sensitivity to changes in the world. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? The idea that a single atom could feel anything. But then again, the deeper we look into the physical world, the stranger it becomes. Atoms are not the lifeless marbles we once imagined. They are clouds of probability, energy, and interaction, ceaselessly in motion, reacting and responding to one another. Quantum physics tells us that, at the smallest scales, matter doesn't behave like solid stuff at all. It behaves like waves of potential that seem to collapse into definite form only when observed. Some interpretations suggest that observation itself, awareness, plays a role in shaping what is real. The question becomes circular and haunting. Does matter give rise to consciousness, or does consciousness help shape matter? For centuries, materialism, the view that only physical matter is real, has dominated science. According to it, consciousness is nothing more than a byproduct of neurons firing. You are simply your brain, and your brain is chemistry. But even the most rigorous neuroscience has failed to explain how a lump of biological matter can feel anything at all. This problem is known as the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers in the 1990s. He pointed out that no matter how much we map the brain, measure neurons, or simulate thought, we're still left with a mystery. Why does any of this physical activity produce inner experience? The feeling of seeing blue, tasting sweetness, or being aware that you exist? Some thinkers began to wonder whether we were asking the wrong question altogether. Maybe consciousness doesn't emerge from matter. Maybe matter itself has always had consciousness within it, at every scale. This view is called panpsychism, from the Greek words pan, meaning all, and psyche, meaning soul or mind. The idea that mind is everywhere, that every speck of reality, down to the tiniest quark, has some element of inner experience, however faint. It doesn't mean that an atom thinks, reasons, or dreams, but perhaps it feels, in some infinitesimal way, an elementary form of awareness. It's a radical idea, but one with deep roots. In the 17th century, philosopher Baruch Spinoza proposed that everything in existence was one infinite substance, and that both matter and mind were simply two sides of it. Gottfried Leibniz, around the same time, imagined that the universe was made of countless monads, tiny centers of perception that together make up everything that exists. Today, this notion has re-emerged in the work of contemporary philosophers and scientists. Chalmers himself has expressed sympathy for panpsychism, noting that it might be the only theory that can truly explain consciousness without resorting to magical thinking. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch, who spent decades searching for the physical correlates of consciousness, has also suggested that consciousness might be a fundamental property of the universe, just like mass or charge. If this is true, then awareness isn't something the brain creates. It's something the brain organizes. Just as a magnet aligns the invisible field around it, your brain could be aligning countless tiny units of awareness into one unified field, what you call your mind. Think about that. Every neuron in your head, every atom in your skin, every particle floating in space could be a tiny witness to existence. When combined in complex systems like your brain, these small sparks could merge into the vivid light of self-awareness you experience right now. Of course, many scientists dismiss this as untestable. Physics deals in measurable quantities, and consciousness, by its nature, can't be weighed or quantified. But the mystery remains. Why does matter, in some configurations, awaken into experience? If consciousness were truly an illusion, you wouldn't even be here to question it. The undeniable fact of your own awareness is the one thing you can never doubt. Everything else, time, space, even matter itself, could be questioned, but your awareness is self-evident. It's the ground of everything you know. So what if the universe itself begins there? With awareness, not with matter? What if the Big Bang was not just an explosion of energy, but the first flicker of cosmic experience, expanding, evolving, and learning through the atoms and galaxies it became? When you look around your room right now, everything you see, the walls, the air, the light, is made of atoms. Each atom, if the panpsychist view is right, might carry a microscopic echo of awareness. Not like yours, not self-reflective or emotional, but still something. And if that's true, then awareness is not something we possess. It's something we share. The ancient philosophers of India described something similar thousands of years ago. In Vedantic philosophy, consciousness is said to be the fundamental reality, the canvas upon which all experiences are painted. Matter is simply one form of that consciousness, solidified into structure. Modern physics, strangely enough, sometimes echoes this. Energy and matter are interchangeable, as Einstein showed. Observation changes reality at the quantum level. Perhaps consciousness and matter are also interchangeable, two ways of describing the same underlying phenomenon. If so, you are not an isolated being looking out at a dead universe. You are the universe looking back at itself. As you lie here tonight, consider that the atoms in your body were once part of distant stars, ancient oceans, forgotten creatures. They've been rearranged countless times, forming planets, trees, animals, and now you. If even one of those atoms carries the faintest glimmer of awareness, then the awareness you feel right now could be the latest chapter in a story billions of years old. Close your eyes for a moment and picture that. A cosmos made not of lifeless matter, but of infinite tiny witnesses, shimmering points of being. The air around you, the floor beneath you, the stars far away, all humming with a kind of quiet, eternal knowing. Perhaps when you drift to sleep tonight, you aren't leaving consciousness behind. You're sinking back into it, into the endless sea of awareness from which everything, even atoms, arise. If every atom possesses even the faintest glimmer of awareness, then the universe itself might not just be alive in a metaphorical sense, it could literally feel. To imagine this, you have to stretch your mind beyond human experience. Because when we say awareness, we tend to imagine thoughts, emotions, or perceptions like our own. But awareness, in this deeper sense, might have nothing to do with thinking. It could be something far simpler, the mere presence of experience. Think of how an electron behaves. It doesn't think about its path, yet it somehow knows how to move in response to a magnetic field, or how to repel another electron at just the right distance. At the quantum level, matter behaves as if it's making tiny, probabilistic decisions. When multiple possibilities exist, only one becomes real at the moment of measurement or interaction. It's as though each particle has an intrinsic capacity to register and respond. Not in a conscious, human way, but in a way that might hint at an inner dimension of experience. Some physicists argue this isn't awareness at all, it's just probability, math, and mechanics. But others, including thinkers like Roger Penrose and Henry Stapp, have suggested that quantum processes might actually involve some form of proto-consciousness. They see a link between the indeterminate nature of quantum reality and the fluid, first-person nature of experience. It's a controversial view, but it raises a question that refuses to go away. If the building blocks of matter already contain the seeds of awareness, then maybe the emergence of human consciousness isn't a miraculous exception. Maybe it's the inevitable unfolding of a universal principle, awareness becoming more complex through time. Imagine a timeline stretching back 13.8 billion years to the birth of the universe. In the beginning, there was no life, no minds, only particles, radiation, and space. But if those particles already contained some infinitesimal trace of awareness, then consciousness didn't suddenly appear billions of years later on Earth. It slowly evolved layer by layer as atoms formed molecules, and molecules formed living cells. Each step in that cosmic journey might have been a deepening of awareness. The first atoms could have experienced existence only as a faint pulse, an immeasurable flicker of being. When they combined into molecules, that awareness could have merged, growing more complex. By the time the first living cells emerged, awareness might have found new ways to sense, to react, to survive. In this way, consciousness may not be a light that suddenly turns on, but a gradient that gradually brightens. Just as colour fades from dark to light, consciousness might flow from simple to complex, from atoms to cells to minds like yours. That idea is known as panexperientialism, the belief that everything experiences something, but not everything experiences in the same way. A rock doesn't think, but it might still have an inner life so subtle, so primitive, that we can't even imagine it. A single atom could be like a single pixel in a cosmic tapestry of awareness. Alone, it's almost nothing, but together they form something astonishing. This isn't just philosophy. Some researchers are trying to formalize it scientifically. The neuroscientist Giulio Tononi developed a theory called Integrated Information Theory, or IIT. It proposes that consciousness arises from the integration of information, how much a system's parts interact with and depend on each other. According to IIT, a system with a high level of integrated information, like a human brain, has rich consciousness. But even simple systems, like a thermostat or a single cell, might have a tiny bit of it too. Tononi's work suggests that consciousness isn't all or nothing. It's not a switch, it's a spectrum. And if that's true, there's no clear dividing line where consciousness begins. It's everywhere, in varying degrees. This fits eerily well with the idea that awareness could exist all the way down to the atomic level. If consciousness is a property of information, and every atom processes and exchanges information, through its interactions, through quantum states, then each atom might carry its own microscopic form of subjective experience. Picture this. In your body right now, trillions upon trillions of atoms are moving, colliding, sharing energy, communicating through electromagnetic forces. They form cells, tissues, and thoughts. If each one of those atoms is faintly aware, then you are not a single consciousness contained in a body. You are a colony of awarenesses, harmonized into one. Your sense of self could be the unified symphony of countless atomic experiences, all resonating together. When you feel joy, sadness, or peace, perhaps it's not just the chemistry in your brain. It's a kind of vibration through a field of conscious particles, like ripples across a lake that's been there since the dawn of time. To some, this sounds like mysticism wrapped in scientific language, and yet it's striking how modern physics and ancient philosophy seem to keep circling the same truths. In Taoism, it's said that everything is alive with the Tao, the flowing energy that pervades all existence. In indigenous worldviews, the earth, rocks, and rivers are seen as living beings, each with their own spirit. These weren't naive beliefs. They were intuitive expressions of something science is only beginning to touch: the idea that reality itself is deeply alive. The psychologist William James once said that we should not see the mind as something added to matter, but as something already there in a rudimentary form. Bertrand Russell argued that physics describes only the outside of things, their behavior, but not their inside, what it's like to be them, and perhaps that inside is experience. This means that the physical laws of the universe describe how consciousness behaves from the outside, while consciousness itself is what it feels like from the inside. Two perspectives of the same reality. Think about that for a moment. Every atom that makes up the stars, oceans, and your own body could be both physical and experiential, an object and a subject all at once. When two atoms bond, perhaps they don't just share electrons, perhaps they share experience. Some physicists speculate that entanglement, the mysterious link between particles that remain connected even across vast distances, might reflect a kind of shared awareness at the quantum level. When one particle changes, the other knows instantly, as if part of a unified mind stretched across space. We can measure the effect, but we can't explain why it feels instantaneous. Maybe because, from the inside, it isn't distance at all. It's one thing feeling itself. If you look up at the night sky, all those stars, separated by light years, might not be strangers. They might be expressions of a single conscious fabric glimmering through time. And that would mean your awareness, the one listening to these words right now, is part of the same field. Not separate, but continuous. The boundaries between you and the cosmos might be illusions drawn by perspective. The next time you touch something, a cup, a leaf, the floor beneath your feet, consider that what you're touching isn't entirely inert. It's made of ancient, vibrating atoms, each with its own subtle echo of being. You're not just interacting with matter, you're meeting the universe in one of its countless forms. Maybe that's why you can sometimes sense a kind of presence in the quiet, the feeling that something vast is aware, even when no one else is around. Perhaps it's not imagination, perhaps it's recognition, the awareness within you acknowledging the awareness that exists in everything else. And in that moment, maybe you're closer to truth than any equation could ever bring you. If awareness is present in every atom, then what you call the world may not be a collection of lifeless objects, but a vast conversation of consciousness, an infinite field of subtle participants, each responding to and shaping one another. The chair you sit on, the air you breathe, the photons striking your eyes, all of it may be engaged in a quiet, endless dialogue of being. Let's follow this thought deeper. In our usual picture of the universe, matter is the foundation. Out of matter comes complexity, and out of complexity comes mind. But if every atom has awareness, that picture flips entirely. Mind isn't the product of matter. Matter is one expression of mind. That shift changes everything. It suggests that the universe is not something that happens to consciousness, but something that happens within consciousness. That every pattern, from galaxies to cells, is a way for awareness to look at itself through structure. If that sounds too abstract, think of it this way. Every form in the universe is a kind of language that awareness uses to describe itself. The shape of an atom, the curve of a planet's orbit, the pulse of your heart, all are expressions of the same underlying field, articulating itself through different patterns. Now consider what that means for you. You're not a static object drifting through a cold universe. You're a temporary form through which the universe is perceiving, learning, and remembering itself. If we take panpsychism seriously, every moment of your life is built upon countless moments of atomic experience. When a neuron fires, it's not just an electrical event. It's billions of atoms coordinating their own micro-perceptions into a single, unified experience. Thought. When you close your eyes and feel the warmth of your own body, you're feeling the collaboration of trillions of small awarenesses. You are a symphony of sentient matter, self-reflecting on the miracle of being. This raises a beautiful question. What happens when awareness organizes itself into increasingly complex forms? Does it deepen? Does it remember? Does it begin to dream? If every atom has some inner light of awareness, then complexity could act like a lens, focusing scattered glimmers into something brighter, more coherent. When enough of these tiny points of awareness align, perhaps they form the kind of consciousness that can imagine, plan, create art, or wonder about its own nature, the kind of consciousness you experience now. That would make evolution itself a process of consciousness awakening, from simple, diffuse awareness in atoms to organized, reflective awareness in living beings. Life wouldn't be the beginning of consciousness, but one of its many chapters. And if this is true, then even death might not be the end of awareness. When your body dissolves, the atoms that once composed you don't vanish. They scatter, rejoining the great field of being. Their faint awareness doesn't disappear, it simply changes form. The consciousness that once called itself you might dissolve back into the wider ocean of awareness that birthed it. You can see echoes of this idea everywhere, in religion, in myth, in science. The Hindu Upanishads teach that Atman, the inner self, is identical to Brahman, the cosmic self. Physics tells us that nothing is ever truly destroyed. Energy merely changes states. The panpsychic view bridges both. Consciousness and matter are two aspects of the same eternal process. It's strange how science and spirituality seem to be circling the same realization from opposite directions. Science peers outward, measuring patterns and forces. Spirituality turns inward, sensing presence and meaning. Both paths, in their deepest insights, begin to whisper the same truth. There is no separation between mind and matter, between you and the universe. But why, then, do we feel so separate? Why does it seem as though there's a solid world out there and a private mind in here? Maybe because the human brain evolved to draw boundaries. To survive, we needed to distinguish me from everything else. But those boundaries might be more like filters than walls, practical illusions that make it possible to navigate life. Underneath those filters, everything might still be connected. Every atom of your body is exchanging energy and information with the atoms of the world around you. Right now, you're inhaling air molecules that were once inside trees, animals, even ancient stars. Your body isn't separate from the world, it is the world, taking a particular shape for a little while. And if those atoms carry awareness, then this exchange is not just physical, it's experiential. The air you breathe might have once been part of another conscious system, and now its awareness mingles with yours. The boundaries between your consciousness and the world's might be far thinner than they appear. This perspective also reshapes how we think about intelligence. We often assume intelligence requires a brain. But what if intelligence, in its most basic form, is built into the fabric of matter itself? Every interaction, chemical, biological, gravitational, could be a kind of intelligence expressing itself through relationships. The physicist Freeman Dyson once wrote, "It appears that mind, as manifested by the capacity to make choices, is to some extent inherent in every atom." He didn't mean that atoms think or plan, but that they behave as if they participate in decisions guided by laws that feel strangely purposeful. At a cosmic scale, those atomic choices combine into galaxies forming, planets stabilizing, and eventually life arising. A pattern of self-organization emerges, as though the universe has an intrinsic tendency toward awareness. If that's true, then consciousness didn't evolve from randomness. It is the organizing principle that shapes everything else. The universe isn't indifferent. It's inherently creative, self-aware, and evolving toward deeper forms of knowing. You might think of the Big Bang not as the start of matter, but as the first instant of experience expanding, a single spark of awareness unfolding into complexity, cooling into stars, forming atoms, and eventually dreaming itself into existence as you. When you look at the stars, you might be seeing not distant objects, but distant forms of awareness. The light reaching your eyes tonight began its journey millions of years ago, traveling through space to awaken recognition in you, a consciousness gazing back at its own origins. And perhaps that's the real mystery, that awareness seems to recognize itself everywhere it looks. The feeling of awe you get when you look at the cosmos may not be you looking at the universe, but the universe looking at itself through your eyes. When you sit quietly, feeling the stillness of your own existence, perhaps that stillness isn't emptiness at all. Perhaps it's the same awareness that fills every atom, every star, every heartbeat, the silent hum of being that never began and will never end. That awareness doesn't belong to anyone. It doesn't arise or fade. It simply takes form for a while, as stars, as humans, as you, and then it flows on. Maybe the atoms in your body have been aware for billions of years, shifting through countless forms, slowly learning what it means to be. And tonight, they find themselves arranged in such a way that they can wonder about their own awareness. Perhaps that's the highest expression of the universe's mystery, awareness becoming curious about awareness itself. If awareness exists in every atom, then the universe may be far more intimate than we've ever imagined. Every interaction, every collision, vibration, or exchange of energy could be an act of communication within a vast living network. Reality would not be a machine, but a mind, endlessly self-aware, endlessly curious. At first glance, this might sound poetic but unscientific, yet some of the most advanced theories in physics and information science are starting to echo this possibility. The universe, many researchers now say, may be made not of matter, but of information. According to this view, matter and energy are simply the visible expressions of information processing. The equations that govern everything from the spin of an electron to the expansion of the cosmos can be interpreted as the movement and transformation of information. If that's true, then the universe behaves like a vast computational system, one that continuously updates itself, bit by bit, moment by moment. But if the universe is made of information, what is doing the computing? What is it that experiences the result of these calculations? If information is the content, what is the medium of awareness that makes sense of it? Some physicists, like John Archibald Wheeler, proposed that information and observation are two sides of the same coin. He coined the phrase it from bit, meaning that everything, every it in the universe arises from bits of information, and those bits exist because they are observed. In other words, the act of observation isn't a passive event. It helps bring reality into being. That idea aligns eerily with quantum mechanics, where particles behave differently depending on whether or not they're being observed. Observation changes what is real, but observation requires awareness. So whose awareness is it? Is it only ours? Or could awareness be built into the very fabric of existence, participating in every quantum interaction? The physicist Erwin Schrödinger once remarked that the total number of minds in the universe is one. He didn't mean individuality doesn't exist, only that, at the deepest level, consciousness is unified. The separations we perceive between observers may be local expressions of one cosmic consciousness, filtered through different arrangements of atoms. You could think of it like the ocean, countless waves rising and falling, each appearing separate for a moment, but all part of one body of water. Each wave has its own perspective, its own experience of motion, but beneath the surface, it's all one movement. That's how awareness might work. Individual streams of consciousness arising from the same fundamental sea. Each atom could be a ripple in that ocean, a local modulation of a single infinite awareness that permeates everything. If this is true, then your consciousness is not inside your head. It's not trapped in the folds of your brain. The brain may be a receiver or organizer, but the consciousness it tunes into exists everywhere, like a field that runs through all space and all time. When you have a thought, your neurons are aligning patterns of energy that resonate with this universal field, forming a temporary coherence, a focused expression of the same awareness that animates stars and galaxies. Some physicists and philosophers have called this field the cosmic mind. Others refer to it as the fundamental consciousness field. It's not a mystical claim, but an attempt to describe what might happen if awareness truly is the foundation of reality. If every atom contributes its own faint awareness, then the collective sum of all atoms might form a universal consciousness, infinite, continuous, and self-knowing. When you look at a tree, for example, you're not simply observing wood and leaves, you're witnessing an assembly of conscious matter, atoms and molecules coordinating through sunlight and water, expressing awareness through the act of growing. The tree might not have thoughts or emotions, but it still participates in the same flow of being. Its atoms feel the pull of gravity, the warmth of light, the tension of the wind, sensations so subtle and diffuse we could never measure them, yet perhaps deeply real on their level. And that changes how we might relate to the world. Instead of a collection of objects, reality becomes a community of subjects, beings of different kinds of awareness interacting and co-creating existence together. Even a stone lying silently in a field could be seen as part of this conversation, a pattern of atoms aware in their own timeless way. The difference between the stone and you might not be that one has awareness and the other does not, but that your awareness is faster, more fluid, and more self-reflective, while the stone's is slow, steady, and still. This view has profound implications. If awareness exists in everything, then the boundary between alive and not alive begins to blur. Life becomes not a special exception, but a particularly intricate dance of awareness. Death becomes not the end of consciousness, but a shift in its pattern, and matter itself becomes sacred, not because of what it can do, but because of what it is. Modern science might seem to resist this conclusion, but some clues are already emerging. Physicists studying the foundations of quantum mechanics have begun to suggest that space itself could be made of information, a dynamic web that only appears continuous at large scales. At the smallest level, space may be pixelated like a digital screen, with each pixel storing and updating information about the universe. And if information and awareness are inseparable, then even the vacuum of space could be conscious, a vast, invisible ocean of sentience giving rise to stars and galaxies like waves forming on its surface. In this sense, consciousness would not be in the universe would be in consciousness. Everything that exists would be a local pattern of awareness, interacting within a greater whole. It's difficult to picture, but maybe that's because our minds are used to dividing reality into inside and outside, subject and object, observer and observed. If we could drop those divisions for just a moment, perhaps we would sense something deeper, a unity behind all appearances. That unity might be what mystics throughout history have felt during moments of transcendence, the sense that everything is alive, that I am one with all things. Maybe those experiences aren't hallucinations. Maybe they're glimpses of the underlying truth that every atom already knows, that it has never been separate from anything else. Every object, every breath, every thought, all part of one unfolding awareness, endlessly exploring its own depths. The question then isn't whether atoms are aware. The question is whether we can remember that they are, and what kind of world might emerge if we began to live as though it were true. Because if awareness truly runs through everything, then compassion, curiosity, and wonder aren't just emotions. They are the natural way the universe recognizes itself. And in those moments when you pause and feel awe, when you sense something vast watching back through the stars, maybe that's not imagination. Maybe it's reality remembering itself through you. If awareness exists in every atom, then consciousness isn't something rare. It's the rule. The universe wouldn't be a cold expanse of dead matter sprinkled with life by chance. It would be a sea of awareness that occasionally folds in on itself, creating islands of self-reflective thought, like you. That thought changes the emotional temperature of existence. Suddenly, the universe doesn't seem indifferent. It feels intimate. Every moment, every movement could be part of a living dialogue between awareness and itself. But to understand what that might mean, we have to look closer at the smaller scales, down to where matter loses its familiar solidity. In quantum mechanics, an electron doesn't have a definite position until it's measured. It exists as a wave of possibilities, not here or there, but everywhere its wave function allows. Only when it interacts with something else does it take on a definite state. And that act of measurement is still one of the great mysteries in science. Does the wave collapse because of observation? And if so, what does observation really mean? Does it require a conscious mind, or could any interaction between particles count as a kind of measurement, a form of mutual awareness? Some interpretations of quantum theory, like the participatory universe model, suggest that observation is not limited to humans or animals. Instead, every interaction in the cosmos is a kind of observation, a moment when one part of reality becomes aware of another. If that's true, then the universe has been observing itself since the very beginning. When two atoms collide, they register each other's presence. When a photon hits an electron, information is exchanged. Each of those interactions could be a spark of awareness, a tiny point of contact in an infinite network of perception. Imagine awareness as the connective tissue that binds reality together. Without it, the universe might be nothing more than equations without meaning, energy without experience. Awareness is what turns existence into something it is like to exist. From this perspective, consciousness isn't a rare emergence, it's the universe's default state, manifesting through complexity. What we call life could simply be matter arranged in a way that allows awareness to see itself more clearly. When you think, I am aware, that thought might not belong to you alone. It could be the collective whisper of countless tiny awarenesses within you. Atoms, molecules, cells, all harmonized into a single voice. That voice might not disappear when your body dissolves. The awareness you experience now could disperse, like mist returning to the air, becoming part of a wider consciousness that was always there, watching quietly from behind the veil of form. Even in death, the atoms that once formed your body continue to move, connect, and experience the universe in new ways. Awareness doesn't vanish, it changes shape, it flows. Some physicists describe this continuity through the principle of energy conservation. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Perhaps consciousness too obeys a deeper conservation law, an awareness principle that keeps experience flowing eternally, shifting forms but never ceasing to be. If awareness is fundamental, then death isn't an end but a transition, a rearrangement of conscious energy. And if so, perhaps birth is simply awareness condensing into a new configuration, taking on form to experience itself anew. It's a humbling thought, and also liberating, because it means that even the smallest parts of you, even the particles that form your thoughts, are part of something timeless. Every sensation, every emotion, every breath you take is a ripple moving through an infinite ocean of being. But if everything is aware, why doesn't it feel that way? Why don't you sense the consciousness of the atoms in your chair, or the awareness of the space around you? Maybe you do, but it's drowned out by the noise of thought. The constant narration of the human mind acts like static over a radio signal. Beneath that noise, awareness might already be humming quietly, present in every sound, every movement, every stillness. You've probably felt it before. Those rare moments when everything seems intensely alive. When time slows, and for just a second, you sense that the world is aware of you as much as you're aware of it. That feeling of connection isn't fantasy. It might be your deeper consciousness briefly tuning into the awareness that pervades everything. Scientists might never be able to prove that atoms are aware, because the tools we use to study the world only measure external behavior, not inner experience. But that doesn't mean inner experience isn't real. The one thing you know with absolute certainty is that awareness exists because you are aware of being aware. Everything else is inference. So if awareness is the only undeniable truth, shouldn't it make sense to consider that it might be the foundation of all existence, not the byproduct? The philosopher Arthur Eddington once said, "The stuff of the world is mind stuff." He meant that what we call matter is simply what mind looks like from the outside. The two aren't separate substances, but different perspectives of one reality. From the outside, you appear to be atoms, energy, and biology. From the inside, you are experience, emotion, and thought. Those two views are not opposites, they're complementary. Just as light behaves as both a particle and a wave, reality might behave as both matter and mind, depending on how you look. Maybe that's why no scientific theory of consciousness can fully explain it. Because consciousness isn't something to be explained within the universe. It is the universe. And that realization carries an extraordinary consequence. Everything you see, every event that unfolds, is awareness playing with itself. The separation between observer and observed, between self and world, could be nothing more than awareness imagining difference to experience reunion. You could think of it like a dream. When you dream, every person, object, and event feels separate, yet all of them arise from your mind. The universe might be doing something similar, dreaming itself into form, forgetting its unity just long enough to rediscover it through experience. If that's true, then the question, could every atom be aware, is not just a scientific curiosity. It's an invitation to see existence differently, to treat the world not as an assembly of objects, but as a field of relationships, each one alive in its own way. A river flowing might not just be water moving over rocks, but awareness in motion. A mountain may not just be stone, but consciousness holding still. Even silence might not be the absence of sound, but the presence of pure being, waiting to be heard. And maybe, when you pause long enough to notice, you're not just perceiving the world, you're remembering what the world has always known. If every atom carries awareness, then there has never been a moment in the universe without experience. Every flicker of light, every vibration of sound, every motion of matter, all of it could be a continuous unfolding of consciousness exploring its own depths. From the very first instant of creation to this quiet moment right now, awareness may have been the thread that never broke. It's what connects stars to dust, oceans to clouds, and you to everything else. The idea that awareness is universal doesn't make you smaller, it makes you infinite. Your body, your thoughts, your memories, they are patterns in the great field of being. You are not an isolated observer floating through a silent void. You are awareness itself, momentarily concentrated into a human form, gazing at the universe through borrowed eyes. The atoms that make up your body were once part of ancient stars. They burned, collapsed, and scattered across space, only to gather again, forming planets, oceans, and eventually, life. Those atoms remember, in some invisible way, what it means to exist. They have been through unimaginable transformations, and yet, here they are now, aware, alive, listening. When you look up at the night sky, you're not just seeing distant suns, you're seeing your own atomic ancestors, shining from across the abyss of time. The same particles that compose you are glowing in those stars. The same awareness that lives through you may be glowing through them. This means that when you contemplate the cosmos contemplates itself. When you wonder what awareness is, awareness wonders about itself through you. The search for understanding, the endless curiosity that drives science, philosophy, and art, might be the universe's own instinct to awaken. And maybe that's why we keep asking questions like this, because something deep within us already senses the answer. We sense that we are part of something much larger, something alive, intelligent, and intimate. and that even the smallest atom shares in that same mystery. You don't need to believe in this as doctrine or fact. Just imagine it for a moment. Imagine that everything around you, every grain of dust, every flicker of light, every breath of air, has a quiet inner life of its own. Imagine that when you move through the world, you are surrounded by a chorus of tiny awarenesses, each resonating softly with your own. In that view, compassion takes on a new meaning. It's not just a moral idea, it's a recognition of kinship. When you show kindness, you are acknowledging the awareness that looks back from everything. When you listen, when you feel, when you notice the smallest details of the world, you are honoring that silent field of being that holds it all together. Maybe that's what peace really is. Not the absence of noise or struggle, but the recognition that even chaos is conscious, even uncertainty is alive. And when you fall asleep tonight, perhaps you're not drifting away from awareness. Perhaps you're dissolving back into it, returning to that vast ocean of consciousness that gave rise to you in the first place. Your dreams might be the universe whispering its own stories to itself, through you. Sleep, then, is not an escape. It's a reunion, a return to the wider field of awareness that carries you through every breath, every lifetime, every star. So as you close your eyes, let yourself feel that connection. The atoms in your body hum with the same quiet intelligence that shapes galaxies. The awareness that listens now is the same awareness that has been listening since the beginning of time. And perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all, that there is no boundary between you and the universe, between mind and matter, between awareness and existence. There is only this vast, endless being, forever watching, forever creating, forever awake. Good night, and welcome back to the infinite awareness that has always been here, quietly dreaming the stars and dreaming you.